Hi, Jane. I hope you're doing okay. Hi, Andy. Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing really well. It's the 3rd of July, I believe, isn't it? 2026. Here in the United Kingdom, it's about, I don't know what time it is actually. About 8 o'clock, is it? I have no idea. I tell you what, I've just completely lost track of time. I don't even know what day it is from one day to the next. I really don't. Hi, everyone. Hi, Brian. Hi, Jane again. Hi. Is that a different Jane? Same Jane? Different Jane. Hi. Hi, Lisa. I hope you're well. Yeah, I'm doing all right. Thank you very much. Hi, Donna. Who else we got? Hi, is that Les? Les VHG. Hi, I hope you're doing okay. I hope everyone's really well. I just thought I'd come on and answer any questions, really. I've been extremely busy building lots of evidence along with other people, and thank you so much to anybody that has been sending information in to me. It's proving very, very useful, and certain evidence is just really getting a good idea as to what's been going on. There's now evidence going right back to Rome in 2000, and how it's going back into a period when the borderline of paganism and Christianity trajectory, if you like, was taking place in Rome. It's really, really quite a critical moment in history, it seems, as to what's gone on, and it's all supporting my theory behind all of this in relation to a potentially not deliberate back at that point, but the removal of the moral conscience, how it tied in with Rome and the orgies and the alcohol that was taking place and lots of other things that was going on in Rome, and how that sort of removed the rationality and the clarity to then lead into what happened potentially with Christ soon after that. And it's really quite mind-blowing what we're finding, and all of the Company's House records around it are linking back into me straight away. You know, you've got for example, the building, the Pantheon, I think it's called, was a building that was originally built back in before Christ, in BC times, and it was originally a pagan temple, and it later in AD became a Christian temple, but I believe it was a potentially infiltrated Christian network back then that then became corrupted. And that building had a what's it called? An oculus. It's one of the biggest oculuses within in the architecture of the world, and an oculus is an eye symbol. And in the dome at the Pantheon, there was an oculus, an opening, which I think was around, I think it was about 9 meters wide, and it represented an eye to the heavens, okay, between humanity and between the stars and heaven. And this becomes relevant to the all-seeing eye, which obviously, as you're aware, I'm sure most of you will know, it's on the $1 bill on the top of the pyramid. It all links into this now from the research. Well, this Pantheon company, I think it's Pantheon International PLC, it was originally incorporated as a different name, and then from 1992 they changed the name for the first time to the Pantheon name within it, okay, in relation to this building. And 1992 is when the Company's House record started to become electronic. But it's also recently been found out that this was the year, according to information that's been acquired, that the Catholic Church wrote a book on their beliefs in that same year. And they also apologized in relation to theories that the earth was, they claimed originally that it was at the center of the universe. Well, they apologized in 1992 for people that was trying to say that it was, hold on, let me get this round the right way. They apologized in 1992 for people that were trying to say that the earth was not at the center of the universe. In other words, the Catholic Church at this same point tried to agree and allow the ability for us to believe that the earth was not the center of the universe. At the same time, when the Company's House records were becoming electronic. Okay, now this is absolutely critical. Okay, it relates into Galileo, and Galileo ties in with the prophecy of the popes and in with the three-eye atlas comet deception. So what I suspect has happened is this was part of their deception around this time, linking in with the fraud. All right, an attempt to actually destroy Christianity, destroy the proof of the, or the importance, shall we say, of humanity, of the earth, and try and separate that closeness to the Creator and how significant moral conscience is. And now, if you look at the end of the Mayan calendar, what they said is that the end of the Mayan calendar in 2012, on the 21st of December 2012, they were speculating that it would be the end of Earth by the creation of a black hole at the center of the galaxy. Okay, they didn't say at the center of the Earth, on Earth, they said at the center of the galaxy. Right? Now, if you put all of this together, what was Stephen Hawking appearing to be trying to do? Create a black hole on Earth. Okay, so I suspect they know that we're very likely going to be the center of everything and how important we are, and that they tried to create an illusion that we were not, to then be able to separate us from this and fulfill the plan from the Creator, from moral conscience, and fulfill the what seems to be a very satanic link into the blood of the children and how that's integrated into the system as part of this agenda against humanity. Now, the other thing with all of this, which is what I have to consider, is it's possible that they knew there was a hidden bloodline all along, and I certainly believe that the Knights Templar and certain individuals within the system knew that there was a bloodline of Christ hidden within humanity, and that they've set up a potential ability as a test for who was going to be the bloodline return through Christ, to see if they would see through all of the deception, all of the attempts to turn humanity against Christianity, to turn everybody against moral conscience, as a test for those individuals to actually come forward to prove that they were potentially linked into Christ right back when Christ was around, through the bloodline and through that being the return. So anyway, 1992, this company changed its name and they included Pantheon within the name from that year, the same time when all of this was going on. It then changed its name one more time in 2015, which is when it became Pantheon International PLC. Well, that company was incorporated with the exact same companies that started Exborn Manor Freehold Limited, where my investigation began. So it'd been a criminal organization. Okay, so and all of the religious organizations are linked into this criminal network. Okay, so we know they are not acting on behalf of the true Creator, because otherwise they would not be involved in a system of international government fraud that exploits, victimizes, causes suffering, launders money, okay, because it goes against the moral conscience. And of course, it's written within our DNA. Whether you believe that or not, I absolutely do. I believe that moral conscience, in other words, love thy neighbor, treating everybody how you want to be treated, as long as you are in a rational state of mind, that generally is the case, all right? And that is how we stay true to the Creator. And that is where things, I believe, have gone massively wrong right back 2,000 years ago and prior to before Christ was even around. Look, I suspect, based on all of this, I suspect Christ was sent down this is what I suspect based on all of my evidence at the moment. Christ was sent down to actually get them to realize where they were starting to go wrong with this, okay, with the moral conscience element, and they got rid of him, okay, and then they continued in their way forward, which would lead, of course, to destruction of everything. Of course it will. If you don't have the ability, and you have have it as your forefront, the ability to decipher what's right and wrong through your moral conscience, and then act in the right way on the earth using that guide, then of course what happens? Well, we become selfish. And if everybody becomes selfish and they only act on what is just best for them all of the time, and they don't think whether it's right or wrong for them inherently within their DNA, within their soul, and they just continue to do it, then of course we will lead to destruction. And this of course ties in with what I believe is a deception within Christianity, where they set up the deception of Christianity that all future sins are forgiven as long as you turn to Christ. Well, that skips moral conscience again, doesn't it? All right. So as long you can just carry on doing what you believe to be wrong, you're not stopping when when this instinct, DNA ingrained ability for you to decipher what's right and wrong and you continue to do it wrong because you think, okay, nobody's going to see or whatever, okay, then of course it then creates this massive trajectory into the end of all of creation. And then how do you top that off? Well, you create artificial intelligence, which doesn't even consider what's right and wrong, because it's been programmed by people that are do not have moral conscience as their focus. So of course, if artificial intelligence takes over, then it will be making selfish decisions for itself alone, which means if there is any thought that it may not continue, then it may make the decision to end humanity. So you can see how this is all tying in with the evidence. So remember, artificial intelligence began in Sherborne, in Dorset, massively part of this, where my investigation began, in Dorset, and that was via Alan Turing, I think, or Turing, who went to that school when he was 13 years old. He supposedly was involved then in some sort of sexual allegations at some point in his life, later in life, and he ended up committing suicide. So he was a key part of the formation of the artificial intelligence. So what are this company, the Pantheon International PLC, it leads into everything. It's absolutely massive where it goes. All of the big companies link into it. There's links into me. There's links into Contact A. It's clearly a massive part of this. So the Oculus also goes back to information that I received from somebody back in March, and a massive thank you to that person. They sent me a document. Now, I've obviously, because it's a typed document in relation to the Freemason bloodline, basically, and it talks about what the G means potentially within the Freemason symbol. It talks about the bloodline, but it also talks about the Luciferian connection into the Freemasons and the bloodline control as well in all of this. Now, the Luciferian element is massively important. Those of you who follow my evidence will know that the Albert Pike letter written to Mazzini appears to be a huge... I'm going to come to your comments in a minute. I'm waffling again. The Albert Pike letter is a massive part of the agenda, okay? And that states that they aim to control the world, but also bring about the light of Lucifer and destroy Christianity, destroy the Muslim faith. Now, it's very likely that they were trying to utilize me to fit their agenda, which I very nearly fell into that trap and actually facilitated the destruction of Christianity, because what I was identifying is the crimes against the children within the Christian network, within the criminal network. Remember, you had the YMCA was created in 1844, which was the same year that Company's House was actually founded. Now, I very nearly fell into the trap of Christianity is all wrong. You know, there's all this corruption within Christianity. But of course, I then identified a deception within Christianity. And this latest evidence is absolutely critical to understand, I think, based on all of the evidence I've got at the moment, where this has all gone wrong, and therefore where we need to be in moving forward in all of this. Let me just have a look at the comments. Let me go back a little bit. It's pretty mind-blowing. So I'm going to talk about Oculus in a minute. Oculus, as I've said, it means eye. And it also links into this Pantheon building. Okay, remember they had the opening. This also ties in with... I'll come into that in a minute. Let me just come, because I wasn't going to forget what I was doing. It seems like most people today selfish and self-obsessed. Yes, but most people aren't. Most people aren't when they're thinking rationally. All right, so what I mean by that is they're not tired. They're not under the influence of any alcohol, drugs. They're not being overworked. They're not being poisoned by food, water, air. Most people are good people, and most people would not want to offend anyone. They wouldn't want it done to themselves. Most people would not steal from anybody. But as soon as we have this rationality, which the system is set up around the irrationality, the system is set up to actually create the separation between moral conscience, right? Because it is, remember, they're behind the drugs, they're behind the alcohol, they're behind the additives being added to your food, they're behind, it's a problem reaction solution criminal network that they have in place. So there's a motive for them to create the problems, right, to remove the rationality, to actually maintain this element, this system of what seems like almost hell on earth. You know, we're heading towards a trajectory of full hell on earth. You know, whether that be the end of all of creation, and that is hell on earth quite literally, through the point of singularity being created through this technology on earth, a black hole or wormhole or whatever you call it, or whether there is a tribulation event triggered because they are trying to create these wormholes, portals, or whatever you want to call it, or black hole on Earth. You know, we are heading into potentially hell on Earth. I certainly think that was the way this could have gone, and I very nearly actually ended up almost facilitating that inadvertently, and potentially may do still, because obviously what I'm doing through this evidence is very possibly cornering them into a situation where there's nowhere else to go for this, all right, where they're being so fully exposed that they don't want to live with how the knowledge of what they've been doing. And it's very likely that the awakening that I'm causing through the evidence is actually waking them up to the deception. So, of course, they're now starting to realize, okay, well, what if we've been completely misled? What if we've been following the wrong scripture that was actually put there by satanic means? What if we have been we've been thinking that sacrificing these children was the right thing to do, but we should have known all along that actually it's written within us that you do not harm a child, the most innocent of all. And what have we done for the last however many centuries? We can't live with this. We can't live with this. What are we going to do? We're going to go to hell if we die, and we don't want to die, so we're going to continue to try and be immortal. Well, they can, the possibility is, and it's the wrong choice, but possibly they're trying to turn back time using these portals to actually undo what they have done in the first place. So they believe they may be saving their souls and they can die and go to heaven in all of this. It's possible that's what we're seeing with all of this. So anyway, let me come to the comments. Sorry, I get sidetracked. Hi, Lanabella. Hope you're doing okay. Hi, Vanessa. Hi, Big Smoke. Hope you're well. Thanks very much for joining me. Sorry, I haven't even responded to emails, and I'm sorry I'm not responding to a lot of messages. Hopefully you can appreciate how time-consuming this is. There's a lot of collaboration going on, a lot of sharing of evidence, and there's a lot of putting that evidence in a way that I can understand it, because as you can imagine, it's quite complex, all of this, and trying to work out where it fits in, and understanding the theory, etc., etc. But yeah, anyway, back to the comments. Glad you're okay, Michelle. Good. Glad you're okay. Childism is bad. Childism, someone's put. Was this around the time of the first industrial revolution? Carla's put. So this was when, the Pantheon was back in, it was before BC. I can't remember the exact year. It wasn't long before BC. I think it was 61 BC, something like that. Now I know it's not long after Julius Caesar was supposedly assassinated, which was, hold on. Let me get this right. Julius Caesar was assassinated in 44 BC. Okay, the 44 reference becomes relevant in all of this. Okay, if you come right forward to 1944, okay, which is almost, 2,000 years later? Can't remember. 1900 years later or whatever. No, it's exactly 2,000 years later. Yeah, there's no coincidence in that, is there? So 44 BC, 1944, 2000. My brain's not thinking straight. I think that's exactly 2,000 years later. Well, that is when the Normandy D-Day landings occurred. D-Day referencing Doomsday. Everybody, see how this all ties in. Now, so this was in 44 BC is when he was supposedly assassinated. Then, not long afterwards, you have the I can't remember which way round it is, but they start building the Pantheon, and then you have the Christ, which was around 6 to 4 BC, is when Christ was born, supposedly, and then he was 13 in 7 AD. So this was, this makes sense, right? Okay, so I'm trying to get my head around it because I haven't got it in front of me. So Christ was around 13 years old in 7 AD, all right? Well, that is 007. That's 007 in years, right? Which is why the 007 link is so critical in all of this, right? And why the number 13 is so critical in all of this, which relates to the letter M, which relates to my ring, which relates to the number of stars on the flag, which relates to the number of steps in the pyramid, which relates to 13 over everything. Why you've got Apollo 13, the movie that they came out with, that links to Exbourne Manor, where my investigation began. 13's all the way through this. 13 vertebrae, 13 in the gematria of the word Amen. Very, very important. And 33 is also important. Seems like most people today are selfish. Yep, sorry, I've read that. Exactly what I was going to say, Michelle. Oh. Well, I think we all need to realise what we're really meant to be in this. We're all doing things wrong to some extent. All of us, whether it's how we speak to people, whether it's how we live our lives, whether it's we are too materialistic, whether it's we don't value nature, whether it's we squash a fly instead of putting it out, all of these sort of little things. We all need to reevaluate our lives based on this evidence. We really, really do. And we need to be focusing on what's important. Creation is important, nature is important, moral conscience is important, children are incredibly important. All of these other creatures on earth that we have neglected for so long are incredibly important, and how this ties in with the creator in all of this, and understanding how our mind is being affected by the system in a way that suppresses who we are, that separates us from the creator, and therefore we all then unknowingly become part of the problem on earth because of that, because we fall into the trap of the system and we become conformed to it, and we believe that the only thing that's going to make us happy is to have a big house, to have a drink, to relax, or to have watch television, or and actually this becomes unknowingly part of the problem we're living in, because we facilitate the system by living like that. And we actually we reduce the chance of our fulfillment in life by doing that. You've all felt something's not right. You've all felt it in your life at some point, and you haven't been able to put your finger on exactly what it is. You've seen the evil around at times, and you've seen the crime, but you haven't really known why it's there, and you haven't understood how that relates to how you're feeling in your life, because you are being deliberately separated from the creator through this system. And when you actually become connected to the creator, and I understand people don't necessarily believe in a creator at the moment, and I understand that, all right? And that's part of the agenda, is to do that, is to get you to not believe it. And this is why a lot of the evidence around the earthquakes now and the tsunamis and the natural things that you've been led to believe are the creator appear to be them that's been doing it, to separate you from the belief in the creator, because there's no greater way, is there, than actually portray evil on earth that appear natural for you to then think, well, surely there can't be a creator. Surely they're not going to be good, are they, if they're allowing these things to happen? If they're allowing, and of course, we've had free will, which is incredibly important. And anyone that says, well, why isn't somebody intervening? Why isn't the creator just stepping in and intervening? Because it's so incredibly important that we all have free will to make that decision. And now this makes sense that we have the people behind the system linking in with Satanism, with the evidence. It seems actually creating the problems to make you believe there isn't a creator, all right, to separate you even more. And I'm just looking through the comments, and then I'm going to come back into Oculus. So they, I believe, were, I've been on the fence in all of this. Unknowingly, I've been, it seems, a person that has the possibility to change the trajectory in this. And I very nearly fall into the trap of the false Christian side of things. They were trying to get me to go to Iona, it looks like, to fit the Iona end of the world prophecy, which was tying in with information suggesting that a twin of Christ would need to be sacrificed, or some sort of element of a sacrifice. Well, there is no way that I will support a sacrifice of anyone other than myself, unless and only if that was absolutely essential. Now, there was a time back in November 2024, I did a video saying, the king's a lie, King Charles, and if they're going to stop what they're doing, then take my life instead. But of course, there'll be no guarantee that they're going to do what they're going to say afterwards. And, that's probably not something I would even consider now, unless there was absolute certainty that by doing that, that would save all of creation and children and change things moving forward. So they were trying to get me to fall into this trap. And this explains when I started to identify a deception within Christianity, Those that were closest to me, that were the most supportive of me around me, all suddenly threw me under the bus. All right, and tried discrediting me, tried undermining me, tried to make life more difficult for me, because they realised, okay, I'm seeing through the deception. Of course, my theory may change as I gain more evidence. My theory may change, but at the moment, based on everything I've got, and I have to say, let me come to the comments. I'm waffling again. Anyone else receiving messages at almost 3 in the morning pretending to be Gary? Yes, somebody has said, Vanessa said there was a message from me on Telegram. Yeah, so what they're doing is they're duplicating my account. This is how worried they are about this evidence, everybody. This is the sort of level they're going to. This is why a couple of weeks ago, they literally put names of the two people, that the person that introduced me to Exmoor Manor and the person that introduced me to my wife, Jock Condon and Ben Pope. He was a sergeant in Bournemouth. Jock Condon was a police officer in Bournemouth. They both introduced me to key elements in this as a staged introduction, and they created usernames on the comments. And then when I mentioned the name, they removed every single comment, not just theirs. Every single comment that every other person had put prior to that point was gone. This shows you the level of control. So that is the people behind this criminal system, which has centralized absolutely everything. Please understand, it is completely centralized, okay, by the same individuals running the world, okay. It is, and of course, very sinister according to all of the evidence that we're seeing. Somebody's put, are you familiar with voice-to-skull technology, synthetic telepathy? Yes, and I actually suspect, based on the evidence that I've got recently, that it could be part of the deception to discredit people coming forward with the evidence of the deception within Christianity and their link to the bloodline of Christ. And what I mean by that is, so I've had a lot of dreams, for example, that have led to critical evidence to actually expose the criminal system. All right. And that, of course, would discredit that. So if there was information to support that, now I was thinking, and I still am, I'm still borderline in relation to this. I absolutely believe that subliminal messaging control is possible. So flickering image on a screen, you can program the mind through that flickering of the image. I absolutely believe that hiding a frequency within a sound, so your subconscious picks it up but your conscious doesn't, is possible. Do they want us to believe that the likes of myself are being controlled? Yes, of course they want that to be believed, because that would fit the separation from the moral conscience again, wouldn't it? All right, so if I was discredited in terms of my dreams leading to the evidence, and, you know, they're trying to get us to believe that time travel already exists, then, of course, what that is doing is fitting the agenda to destroy the faith and destroy Christianity. Because if you're saying that they are manipulating mind, space, matter, and mind, space, matter, and time, then that gives the ability to manipulate absolutely everything, and it discredits potentially absolutely everything. All right, so that technology fits the agenda to actually destroy faith. And the same thing with the aliens, okay, with the alien things. Now, I'm going to come to the alien thing in a minute if I remember. Let me just go forward. So, yes, I have heard of voice to skull. Do I think it could be an element of the deception? Yes, possibly. Possibly to fit the agenda to destroy faith and destroy Christianity. Yes. And is there an element of mind control? Yeah, I can't say there isn't, because it's very easy to consider, isn't it? Flickering the image, you know, so we know there's going to be an element of programming in this. But I do think they are trying to potentially fit that in with me to discredit who I may be. So I'll give you a good example, and it actually ties in with what we just spoke about a minute ago. So when I was first looking into MK Ultra, which is the mass non-consensual experimentation on humanity that goes back to Operation Paperclip, supposedly in the 1940s, and then the MK Ultra coming in the 1953 is when that program began, when the Queen was coronated, Queen Elizabeth II. When I started researching it, I identified very quickly a company called MK Limited that was called MK Medway, I think it was, or MK Chatham, I can't remember, straight to the area where I was born. Now, this company was incorporated, I think it was in 1984, so it was 7 years after I was born. What greater way, if they knew who I was, who I may be, and who, if I was going to awaken one day to who I was, all right, and they may have done this with every person within the bloodline, all right, what better way to actually set up a trail of evidence to make me think, oh, I wonder if they're implanting things in my mind, and that's why I'm having the dream. I wonder if they're doing this, and that's why this is happening to me, which then gets me to think, well, maybe it's not the creator, you see, as a divine intervention. See how this fits the agenda? Well, that company, okay, is how I found the connection, the first connection to the 13th century Knights Templar location, which is called Temple Manor in Strood in Kent, which links to the Knights Templar and ties in with the hidden bloodline of Christ. Just get my jacket off, I'm getting quite hot. And that is where within there is the connection to my former school. That's how I found it. And then a link to a Waterman offshore company, into a Masonic company, and then tying into loads and loads of Olympic Games companies, leading to football companies, David Beckham, and then linking back into the rapid response. So, of course, at this point, I'm thinking, wow, okay, so am I being MK Ultra'd? Well, now I'm starting to think very strongly that they set this up, as well as the alien deception around the time I was born, or not long after I was born. So when you go, they changed the name, so that company, the MK Limited Company, they changed its name for the only time in 1992 on a key date. Now, I can't say why, but the date that they changed it is absolutely bombshell critical evidence, okay, when they changed it. But 1992 is the exact same year that I said about earlier, okay, when the Catholic Church came forward and they apologized to Galileo, all right, who was trying to say that the world was not the center of the universe. All right, they then created this belief system book in 1992 as well, all right, to actually then show what the Catholicism belief is in this. And this is the same year that the company's house records started to become electronic. All right, now again, I come back to what I said earlier. Was it all set up for me to be able to see through the deception, realizing they were trying to destroy Christianity, to therefore prove who I am through that, by seeing through every element of deception, every trap they set for me, to see through it and actually bring the world back to Christ, back to moral conscience through that and through the Creator. Now we're going to come to the alien deception in a minute. I'm just going to read the comments. Are you familiar with yes, I've mentioned that. Yes, Julie, I had, that's mentioned someone else. That's good that you're chatting. I sent the message to Gary and he said straight away it wasn't him. Yeah, that was not me that sent that to Vanessa, a message. What's their game then doing that? Someone's put. Who's that to? Oh, that's to Vanessa, sorry. Have you sent out the documents? I haven't had a chance to send the latest document out, no, with all of this evidence that I'm telling you, but you can go and get the latest one that I have sent out, which was back on, I think it was the 20th of May, was it, something like that? I can't remember. It's on my Telegram channel, which is Gary for Freedom. On my Telegram, just scroll back a little while. On the main page, you will see a number. It's the date. So there's just a number at the beginning, and it's the main evidential research document is what it's called. And you can get that publication of the document, which has a lot of the evidence in, but it hasn't got all of this latest stuff, because I'm still trying to get that evidence together and still trying to decide on what I do moving forward based on this evidence. As you're aware, massive things going on in terms of Keir Starmer resigning 5 days after I sent or started to mention the dolphin element in all of this, the culling of the dolphins, which is massively important and ties in with the alien deception, and I'll come to that in a minute. So no, I haven't sent the documents out yet. Gary, did you see the other album that band did, and the 7th song? Sorry, which band? Are you talking about the World Trade Center? I Am the World Trade Center, that band? Yes, if it's that band you're talking about, yes. They changed the they had a song called September, and the album came out in I think it was June or July 2001, before the World Trade Center even happened, and they were called I Am the World Trade Center, and then one of the songs was called September. Okay, well, I Am references the divine creator in all of this. So what they were saying is, I am making a link to the World Trade Center. All right, and it massively connects into everything that I'm exposing here, massively. Richard Tice has been threatened by an Irish MP to stop looking into a company called Siren, and they have said they will sue him. That's interesting. Richard Tice is massively linked into the Companies House fraud. They all are, everybody, massively linked into it. I think they may be planning something for the 7th of July, somebody has said. Yes, absolutely, Gary. Carla, that's why, this is what Carla's put, that's why we hated school, because we knew subconsciously that there was, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's been written into our DNA, everybody, of the moral conscience. I think actually the creator is written within our DNA, and they've tried to separate it. All right, and this explains why the removal of the feminine divinity. This would explain why you've got an image which appears to be Mary Magdalene within the Last Supper, and they're trying to make it seem like it's a man. This all ties in with the Da Vinci Code movie, and in with the inverted pyramids, which then becomes very, very relevant in all of this. And this all ties into Egyptology and the sun and Ra and the return of the sun, as in the sun, but also Christ's son as well. So it's all linked in. Some bishops from St. Puy X were excommunicated. Yeah, I always get mixed up. Is it excommunicated or excommunicated? I always get mixed up. Recently, it came up in my news feed over the past few weeks. Yes, thanks very much to somebody that sent me some links to it, because I hadn't had time to pick up on them. Thank you. They sent me some articles in relation to the meeting that took place on the 1st of July, and there's big movements around that. That's the Vatican. That actually ties in with me. Okay, so the St. Puy X, just in case people don't know, it was an organisation that was set up by Martial Lefevre in 1970, the year after Charles became the Prince of Wales, the year before the World Economic Forum began, and it then had a 6-year period until 1976, which then Apple was created. I was born 77, ties in with the Foundation of Science and Technology, Ghislaine Maxwell, and loads of other stuff. Anyway, the St. Puy X was then what's the word? The timescale began again indefinitely from 2017. So when Donald Trump was positioned as the 45th president, and after the Pizzagate scandal had been exposed, after a ritual took place in August 2016 apparently took place in the Large Hadron Collider in CERN in Geneva, and that same month they had the Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro, which becomes relevant, which is where it was overseen by Christ the Redeemer, the statue on the hill, which becomes very relevant. That year was also when movements took place in relation to this Society of Jesus. Now, the Society of Jesus are massively linked into this, and it actually links into the evidence surrounding the Oculus that I'm telling you about, going back into the Pantheon 2,000 years ago, or over 2,000 years ago. So, yeah, it's all interconnected very, very quickly in all of this. Going through Telegram settings and removing consents and links is important. They use cross-platform connections and a mobile and +44 protocol and hijack fake accounts. Be careful who you follow. Yes, thanks very much. They're all compromised. All social media accounts are compromised by this fraud. Shame on you, TikTok, part of the blood of the children, part of the crimes against humanity going back in history and suppressing the evidence of the truth through me. Shame on you. And I tell you now, you will be facing ultimate consequences if you continue to suppress my evidence, to suppress the truth, to target me in any way, because I represent the children and creation moving forward, and truth, transparency and trust, and bringing heaven on earth. So anybody that is suppressing my evidence, make no mistake, I believe, and it's, of course, it's not up to me. Well, maybe there is some element of me having an influence on this if I am who it looks like I am, but you will be facing the ultimate consequences in all of this, I believe. The truth will set everybody free, including you, including those behind this criminal system. They did another album called The Cover Up, and the 7th song is interesting. Check it. Check it out, someone's put. September was the 11th. Oh, right. Okay, so there's an... Oh, okay, sorry. Right. Okay, thanks very much. I'll check. Okay, so there's another song you're saying is important there. If it's the same... You still haven't mentioned, as far as I can see, the band that you're talking about, but I've probably missed it. I probably skipped a comment or something there. I was getting I hated school, always in my report, could listen more and listen. Didn't believe anything they said. Yeah, I was sort of half liked it, half didn't. School, really. Again, I was sort of right in the middle, right average. Nothing special about me at any time in my life, and I think that was all deliberate to get to this point where I've had to be kept neutral in every way possible, protected by my families, it looks like, from the criminal network. So that at this point I could do what I'm doing. I haven't been corrupted by any scripture, although I've had certain thought processes around it and believed in certain elements. Never read, fully any scriptures or anything like that. And I think that was absolutely essential for me to be in this position that I am now. Someone's put, I only follow 5 accounts on Telegram. I trust. No, yeah, Telegram on Company's House. It links straight to Vistra, which is the main company in the fraud. That's directly linked to Export Manor Freehold Limited, where my investigation began. It originally started in, I think it was 2013, which is when after CERN discovered the Higgs boson or God particle. Hi Janine, I hope you're okay. Thanks very much for joining me. I'm not going to be on, a few people, I haven't got enough people on here. It's such a shame I can't get out to more people in this. They're just suppressing it, unfortunately, and they're just going to face, I feel very, very sorry for anybody involved in this, because I know full well, the evidence is pretty overwhelming what's gone on here. It's pretty obvious where people are heading if they don't do the right thing now and come forward in truth. And I feel very sorry for these people. I got a warning for sharing your evidence, Lisa. Yes, sorry, Lisa. Yes, I did see your message, actually. Yes, interesting, isn't it? So they don't want people sharing it. I still can't do a live on TikTok. Still can't do a live. Can everybody please, if you haven't already done so, can you please follow me on my other TikTok account, which is Gary for Freedom 2. So Gary, 1R, the word for, freedom, the number 2 at the end. Please, if you haven't already done so, please go and follow it. I need to get the numbers up so I can go back on lives on there. They've frozen my lives. So I can actually post stuff on my other account, which is Gary for Freedom without the 2. But I can't actually do lives. So please, can you go and join my other one? The Hadron Collider has apparently been shut down for, I believe, 4 years. Yes, so they're telling us. I do have to consider it's possible with all of this that the technology isn't even real. I don't know that. So at the moment, I have to consider it is real. But what I said earlier could be what a lot of this is about. All right. Setting up a vast amount of evidence of evil on Earth so that the right people would be able to see through, come forward, be willing to put everything on the line and actually identify the truth going back in time as to what's really gone on in all of this. Now, the evidence of the vampirism is growing and growing and growing, all right? To the point where I can't say in any way that is going to be a deception in any way, shape or form, even if a lot of the other stuff is, because there's too much there going back in history that I'm now finding. And what I've got to look at, you see, is how that fits their agenda moving forward. And of course, we've got this agenda of the possibility of them saying they're going to disclose alien information. Well, that would fit the agenda as an escape route in relation to the historical crimes against the children and the blood. So this is why you've got links in now to ancient aliens coming in from people that are saying there are aliens. Okay, massive evidence coming in relation to Wilcox, whatever his first name was, somebody who we're being led to believe was unalived. He actually links with an aerospace company, linking him with the government and anti-gravity technology. This is the person that is trying to get you to believe there is aliens, right? And there's corruption around that organization. And a video has been sent, which I was going to show tonight, actually, on the screen. And I think it was sent deliberately to my live feed, with this Wilcox. I've forgotten his first name. Supposedly he died. He was a scientist. You'll know who I'm talking about, many of you. And this video was him saying that the Rothschilds are not personally targeting, but getting somebody else to target him to make him feel his life was going to be taken. So he claimed this happened on 3 occasions. Now, at the bottom of the screen was his name, and behind it, there was an inverted pyramid. a diamond shape, two pyramids together behind his name at the bottom of the screen. Well, that symbol links to me, it links to person A in Australia, and it links into everything I'm telling you in relation to the bloodline of Christ, the divinity, into the Da Vinci Code. And the Rothschilds, don't forget, are connected directly to me. All right, directly to me, literally straight away via a home start company, which then links and connects into my school, my former school, and the Waterman Offshore Company and the 13th century Knights Templar location. So you've got links straight to me, to the Rothschilds, but you've also got links to the Rockefellers, which are connected to the Rothschilds via the Artemis companies. And the Artemis company has just come up again in my research today, again surrounding the Oculus and regarding the Pantheon. Now, there was something I was going to say on that. So this, I believe, was sent to my TikTok feed deliberately, because Wilcox within this video says that he believes he would have been killed earlier if it was not for universal law, I think is the words he used. Right, so this came up on my TikTok. I've never ever searched him. I've never even searched scientists in relation to the deaths of these scientists on TikTok. It's things they're feeding to me. And in there, so I suspect it was because they mentioned that you're almost consenting to your death. All right. Well, I want to make it absolutely clear, in case they think I'm consenting to my death in continuing. I absolutely do not consent to my death in any way, shape or form. I am not suicidal. I'm not depressed. I'm very motivated, very driven, and very committed to this. And I do not consent to my death in any way. What I do consent to, though, is if you behind these systems cannot actually come out with the truth and you're going to continue to risk creation, then I actually support you taking your own lives. If you are instrumental in this criminal system and you are not coming out and exposing it and exposing yourself in this system because you're part of some ridiculous secret society, male organization, it's pathetic that you set up years ago to remove the feminine divinity which would have protected you all, because that is the divinity which infuses the moral conscience within you, then I can absolutely consent. And not only that, I pray, if you're not going to come out with the truth, I pray that you may consider removing yourselves from this earth, because I cannot allow you to actually move towards the end of creation and to cause the suffering of children continuously with part of your secret society. The very fact that you set up a secret society, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine, we'll make sure we're all right, forget about everybody else in the world. You're going against the creator. All right, you're going against transparency. It's the opposite of truth, transparency, and that is exactly what we're going to see with artificial intelligence, because they are the embodiment of artificial intelligence. All right, selfishness, greed. They wouldn't do it to themselves, would they? Right? We know that. They wouldn't want themselves exploited, victimized, stolen from, and yet there they are, going against what is written within their DNA, okay? Because of everything I'm talking about, they've gone against the creator. So they have everything to lose, absolutely everything, beyond their wildest imagination, eternal consequences to that they could be facing in all of this, I believe. Average for me too turned up for art lessons. I actually did really well in art. I got an A in art in my GCSE, and I then went on and did A levels. I got a C in art. I took craft design and technology because I was going to be an this now makes sense, doesn't it? Unbelievable what I've been reading today. I was going to be an architect, and I didn't want to actually sit behind a desk all of the time. There's a reason I've just said what I said, because it links in with the evidence today. But anyway, I didn't want to sit at a desk all the time, so then I decided to change my course of direction completely. Thank you very much for your comment. Happy new phone. I really appreciate it. Proud of my integrity. Thank you very much. That means a lot. Please understand I'm being guided. It's very, very clear. I should not be able to do this. I should not be able to function. I should not be able to expose the entire world system, one man in a tent with a phone that's cracked. It shouldn't be possible, everyone. And don't forget, I'm having these dreams. That's not me choosing to have those dreams. And this can't be them setting those dreams up, because the dreams are actually exposing them through the evidence of those dreams. So they would have been having to manipulate my mind, space and matter, and at the same time be doing that to expose themselves. So again, it doesn't fit everything. and therefore that I don't believe that is the case. So then you're talking divine intervention through those dreams, massive ones. I mean, for me to just suddenly dream 1333 and wake up, and then that day it leads to a battle in 1333, getting me to acquire evidence linking in the Flemings into a battle from that year that then becomes key to the evidence of the blood of the children, right back in the 1300s. Obviously, the 13th century Knights Templar, around the time that links into me via my school, via this building, the Temple Manor. That's not a coincidence, everybody, all right? It's not a coincidence. That was through a conversation. It was just, and I'd even made a little bit of a mistake, getting mixed up with the 1500s, and John Dee went and checked 1300s anyway, thinking that was the period of John Dee, which links into 007, got it wrong, found out this evidence which was critical, and then through that, found out that they were removing information from articles in relation to that, but I was able to secure the evidence proving they were removing the information, which then emphasized how critical that moment was in history. 1333, the number 13 again, and the number 33 when Christ was sacrificed, supposedly. And 33 being the same age I was when I went to Christchurch, or X-Church, and moved from Christchurch Road, where Exbourne Manor was, that year when I became 33 and went to Christchurch in New Zealand. Didn't know any of this back then. That's not a coincidence, everybody. All right, are they controlling my mind, body, all of the information, the time, matter around me with the evidence that I'm seeing? You know, there's too much. And in the process of doing that, expose themselves to the skinning of children alive, and me proving a deception within Christianity going back over 2,000 years, and forming these theories around the blood of the children, and now exposing them, trying to cover it with a fake alien deception. Would they have deliberately put that in my mind? No, of course they wouldn't. So then you come to a divine intervention, and the Creator is real, and it seems that I am the bloodline through Christ. There's too much evidence. Go and look at the document if you don't believe me. You need to look at the evidence. All of this is pointing towards that being the case. It's massive. Marcello Lefebvre, 1977, he left the Vatican. He went to Switzerland. I don't know whether I was conceived at that point somehow linked into Marcello Lefebvre. He was opposed to the, and this ties in with St. Puy X. Okay, he was opposed to the modernization of the church and a scientific trajectory on earth, exactly like I am, exactly like John Connor, same initials as Jesus Christ in Terminator movies. My favorite movie, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, leading into the Matrix. Exactly the same thing that Neo was doing before he became the One in the Matrix movies, trying to stop a taking over through the technology of humanity. Exactly what I am doing. Exactly what I'm doing. Then you had the drones that they had. You know, I could go on and on and on. The drones that they had, trying to find my location, that then led me to find evidence linking back into the Matrix, coming in from the Sentinel Drone Company. Oh, brilliant. Well done, Luna Bell. You're following both accounts. Brilliant. They're massively suppressing the evidence. So there was 2 videos that they were not even posting for well over 48 hours, I think it was. I posted them, but they wasn't actually putting them on, so there was no views for about 2 days. Then I looked yesterday, and they've allowed some views on it, but they're suppressing it. So there was only 90 views. Now, this was the evidence in relation to the alien deception. They didn't want you seeing the evidence that would join all of the dots and prove why they would want an alien deception. This isn't about me not wanting to believe in aliens, all right? This is about understanding the motive and the evidence as to why they would want you to believe in aliens at this specific time. And when you go back to when I was born, 1977, the movies that came out within 2 weeks of me being born, the Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Okay, you have a movie in 1977 called the Capricorn 1 movie that links into me. All right. That was 1977, which was about a fake moon landing. There's loads of other stuff. Loads and loads of other stuff. So this, I believe, was setting up the ability when they realized, right, they were setting up a potential future deception to see, A, if I would see through the deception to still identify who I would be and test me through that, or facilitate this to destroy all of Christianity and lead the world into a literal end of creation event. Someone's put, the government have had a consultation on green paper on YouTube. They want to put their news channel as a priority, so censor creators. Yes, I've heard about that. Yeah, I've heard about that. And this is why the document is critical. This is why the document I'm producing is game over for them. And they know it. They know it. Even if they were to take Companies House, the whole Companies House registration system down now, shut it down, nothing's going to work now, right? Because we're seeing through everything, all of the deception. This is why you've got the alien deception, because it's their final card. There isn't really another card that they can pull, all right, to cover this up. If they go in the tunnel systems, they're going to flood, right? So they've got no way to save themselves physically in this, potentially. Certainly spiritually, is that, well, there's only one way, I believe, and I believe there's evidence now coming out that if I am who I am, or who the evidence is suggesting I am, because of course what I've got to consider is, are they positioning all of this evidence through the records to make it seem as though I am a person that I'm not? So obviously I've had to think about that. But then you come back to the dreams, which supports all of it, and all of the other stuff around it. The fact that they're not responding to anything, about 50 police reports not even being responded to, all of the things that are coming out, which I'm able to just expose them even more through it, timings of everything. It's so incredible beyond, I can't even explain how incredible it is what's being found. It's just monumental, I suppose, is the best word. Where was I going with that? There's something I was going to say, I can't remember. Oh yeah, so there's a suggestion, if I am who I am, then it's possible that I have an influence, and this actually came up today from somebody else with evidence, that I or we may have the ability to influence the forgiveness of people's sins through the spiritual side of things as well. Now that's a massive thing for me to say, and I understand how crazy that sounds, but this is now what's starting to potentially be considered with the evidence that is being exposed. So now that means, and I come back to those behind the system, which is what I said a couple of nights ago, if that is the case, then I will absolutely give my word, okay, that I will take, coming forward in the full disclosure of the truth, a full repentance for what you've been part of, and a commitment to change into consideration. If there is a way that I can influence that in the afterlife, then I will absolutely do that. But I will have absolutely no qualms to support eternal damnation if that does not happen soon to these individuals. And that's the only right way for me to think about this. If these people have had 4 years, and even with this evidence now tying into all of this, they are not doing the right thing and coming forward, then they've got to face the ultimate consequences, haven't they, in the afterlife potentially as well, or at least think that that's going to be a case to them, a possibility for them to face that consequence, because that could be what gets them to come out. And I honestly believe this is what they're facing now. I honestly believe they face the most awful consequences of anyone in this, no matter what they do. Even if they were to end creation through an event, even if they were to turn back time or whatever, or take out humanity through some false reset event, I actually believe that they're going to face, I think it's far worse than, I can't even express how bad I think it's going to be for these people. Now, if I have a decision or an influence on these people's eternal side of things, I am absolutely the best person positioned here, and that's maybe why I'm in this position, to literally have an oversight of everything, an understanding of history, where this may have gone wrong through programming or whatever, through conditioning, and to therefore make the best assertion as to what needs to happen with these people on this earth, and therefore how that may be reflected on what happens after their life. I understand how massive this is. What I'm saying. Mark Kishon Christopher was clearly targeted for his knowledge, and he had to be removed. Unfortunately, he underestimated the dirty tricks. He's a very knowledgeable man. What I would say to you is be very, very skeptical of absolutely everybody that is not talking about the company's house fraud. It's very possible that every single other person that has any sort of platform is actually part of the deception. Right now, bearing in mind what I've just been saying about who I may be, that could explain why I'm the only one that is talking about the company's house fraud, because it ties absolutely everything together. It proves everything. It joins all of the dots with all of the things you've known that's happened going back in the last sort of 200 or 300 years and going back thousands now, according to the research. Now, you've got to ask the question, why am I not being taken out? It's a big, big question. Why am I not being unalived? Right? They know where I am. They've told me, they've let me know that they've let me know that I know that they know. What am I trying to say? I know that they know where I am because they've let me know they know where I am. That's it. That's what I was trying to say. Right? They've let me know that by actually doing things that have made me know that. All right, with knocking on my doors at key times after I've made a phone call, risking triangulation, and then the same day having a veiled car bomb threat sent through to my phone. You know, this was the same day. The two guys they set up, making it look like they were trying to poison me, involving two Russian actors. You know, all of these things. So I know they know where I am. So then you come to, well, why aren't they getting rid of me? Well, there's only two options, isn't there? Either they haven't been getting rid of a lot of the people we've been thinking they are, or they can't get rid of me. Now, I'm starting to think more so recently because that they can't get rid of me because of who I am. Now, what has made me think that recently is when I did the research coming in from the monarch butterfly, which led into the butterfly trust of Jeffrey Epstein, which led to the bloodline control in the West via the governments. It then led to a company called Peaky Blinders, Immortal Man. Now I'm starting to think that I deliberately, well, through divine intervention, may have found Immortal Man, not because I'm immortal as in I can't be killed, but as in potentially they can't kill me, because they are, remember, they are the ultimate deceivers. If you've got satanic elements in this and demonic side of things, whether that's people drinking and taking drugs and seeing demons and that's becoming demonic because of that, or they're worshipping through blood ritual or sacrifice, you know, rather than it actually be a, you know, entities entering them, because the mind, obviously, if we separate from rationality and clarity through substance abuse, which we know is a huge part of this, then the mind will play tricks on you. All right, so it could be they're seeing lizard people, for example, or they're seeing demons and they're seeing and believing they have to do things that because the irrationality is telling them to do that. So where was I going to go with that? So therefore, it's possible that because of the inversion of Christ, if they know that I am a bloodline of Christ, then they actually can't take me out. They can't actually kill me. That's not to say that somebody else who's not a disgruntled, it may be that nobody can. You know, it may be that literally there's been attempts to actually take my life and it's just been foiled every time because of everything I've done, and at every step of the way I've been doing things that have been trying to avert me having that risk of my life being taken, because I've realized how critical the evidence is and I need to protect it. Sorry, let me just come through the comments again. I saw a meeting on YouTube to do with Thetford locals and the Barnum RAF asylum seekers. The man who held the meeting had a northern accent and was saying about rapid response would help. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Thanks, Terry Rush. Yeah, massively compromised. So they're linked to all three of my families, but we've got to see, you know, maybe they wanted me to come forward, okay, as who I am, but they didn't think I would expose as much as I am in the history side of things. So maybe they are trying to facilitate me coming forward, but they didn't realize they're trying to cover up the history going back, not knowing that I would expose that much. That's a possibility in this. And they're trying to therefore use me to fit their agenda, but I've managed to see through it all. Now, one of the agendas, as I've said, it seems to be, obviously they're not going to want to be fully exposed, are they? Let's face it, they're not going to, it's gone wrong for them, I think, whichever way you look at this, because they're not going to want to be exposed to the blood of the children and the skinning of children. and there's just overwhelming evidence in relation to that. And now this explains, doesn't it? This why? How can they get away from that? And how can they make you believe that the evil is gone from Earth? Well, they set up a fake alien invasion or fake alien deception, because that sets up them saying, well, they're gone, they were aliens, they're no longer running the world, all right? And then actually they hide in their tunnel systems, or they blend in with humanity, they change their identities, they change their features, because there's evidence suggesting they might actually be surgically having surgical operations to change their appearance as well, and then merge in with humanity again, to then potentially come out again in a few other centuries with their bloodline, but the system that I will set up in the meantime will mean that will never happen. This will never ever happen again, and that's why we're on the verge of heaven on earth, because it will never happen again. Now we have this evidence, and now we know what's gone wrong, and we know how it's been managed, and we have technology that can be used to actually create the transparency on earth, and actually the technology to implement full and the correct verification with it, to bring in accountability and liability, you see, through incorporations. Then this will never happen again. It will literally never happen again, because the system will protect humanity from the leadership. All right, it's been the other way around. The leadership has been put in place to actually corrupt and exploit and victimize the masses. We've never been at a point where we've been able to say, this is where it's gone wrong, this is what a theory is on how it's gone wrong, where we could be heading, and here's what we need to do to actually ensure that it never happens again. So you cannot have a king or a prime minister or a president that is able to corrupt the system and exploit humanity, because the system will protect humanity from those leaders. And that is why this is absolutely world changing. Many are suffering from microscopic coronal damage and are suffering in silence, and they are not capable of coherence. They beg for death, but death will not come. COVID-19 was a military operation. Yes, that's what a lot of people want us to believe, don't they? That the injections were harmful, but they're refusing to use the evidence proving that those vaccine companies are criminal organizations. The best evidence you could ever possibly have. If you were truly fighting the vaccines, that tells us it is a deception. There's loads more other evidence around the vaccines being a deception. That's not to say that some of them were not harmful, but many, many actors are in this. Don't forget, many people, millions of people are involved in this, not necessarily with the suffering of the children, as in the blood of the children, but 100% in relation to the criminal network in place. 6 million Freemasons, at least. You've got all of their friends and family that would have been coming in on the back of it, all exploiting this system. Okay, and there you go. Someone's put the Waterman company could be owned by you through the birth certificate fraud, someone said. Yeah, I mean, I've come across several Waterman companies now. There's multiple Waterman companies that are all tying with key parts of the research. And there's actually Waterman connections into the research around Mikey P, or whatever his real name, whether it's Michael Pearson, whether he's a relative of the Pearson family, who are associates of the Krays, which would make sense because the Krays who associated with my family, my dad's adoptive family, and the Kray twins are massively linked into this, into the Russian government, into the royal family, into the Vatican. So yeah, there's Waterman companies actually cropping up where the research is around Mikey P. There's even a name of Michael Waterman. So whether he is potentially related to me, it's possible. Well, he was the one that turned on me, along with Phil McLaughlin, who massively links into this now in a huge way. They both threatened to steal my home and my motorhome. And then in collaboration, that actually happened with the police on the 19th of September 2025, when I was arrested unlawfully imprisoned and assaulted whilst I was in prison. Someone's put rapid response. I compromised 100%. Laura Nina, she's linked into the research that I have, or information I have, is that she's linked to the Sicilian mafia, which I actually believe is going to be the case, which means there's going to be a link into the Vatican. She was apparently feeding information from her followers. This is Laura Nina, which isn't her real name, by the way. Ask yourselves, why are none of them using their real name? It's a big question. You should be asking yourselves. She was feeding information into Donna Jones, who was the police and crime commissioner for Hampshire and Isle of Wight. according to the information I've had. And I absolutely believe that's the case because there's too much evidence now in all of this. Many more. Thanks for your comment, Jennifer Boyd. Really appreciate that. Many more are going to end their lives soon because of a DWP. Oh, is that directed weapon? Don't know. I don't want them to end. Let me make it clear. I do not want them to end their lives. But if there is the risk to humanity, creation, and children because they won't come out in the truth, then the next option is yes, I condone them ending their life. That's not what I want. That's not what I want. I don't want them to end their lives, but you have to prioritize in this. Julie, yeah, I saw this about changing the benefit system. Oh, so the DWP stuff. Oh, I see what you mean. So you're actually talking about Department of Work and Pensions, are you? Right, I see. So they're doing something which is going to make people struggle and end up taking their lives, you mean? Right, okay. Yeah, the amount of people that would have committed suicide because of this satanic system they've got and everything I'm talking about, it's just unreal. You know, even if some of the deaths aren't real, but, you know, let's consider they are for now. You know, many people, because of the system, would have been depressed and committed suicide or died from overdose or alcoholism. They are so nasty. That's somebody else. Julie, that's all. Yeah. People's life. Be compromised. Many so-called truthers are driven by financial gain in whatever form. If they are pushing books, seminars, events, etc., all for money. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it's something you need to consider. So that's somebody saying that people on platforms are pushing money. Whether people have noticed or not, I don't know. Many people have said, "Oh, we need to start a GoFund for you, Gary." Don't want it. I've never ever requested money. I've actually turned multiple offers of money around, even coffees I've turned down. You know, and this could have been a test for me. You know, or being used to try and undermine me. You know, as soon as I accepted money, then they'll start that route of, you know, Gary's only doing it for money. Of course I'm not. I'm living in a tent. My goodness me, I've got money to keep me going. It's not something I would ask for money unless it was an absolute essential necessity in all of this. You know, I spend very little money. I like the things that are free. I love the things that are free. I love nature. I love walking. I love cycling. I love kayaking. I love swimming in nature. I don't spend much money at all. I buy my clothes from charity shops. I always try and buy the food that's going out of date whenever I can, just because it makes sense to me, because it saves me money, but it also protects the environment. You know, and this is something I've always been like that. This is, no matter how much money I've ever had, I've always been like that generally. But there was a point I was going to say about that, and this is why, again, you know, I was offered it was many people supposedly, but I think it was a test for me to see if I would accept it. Over £8,000 a month for the next 20 years of my life. And of course, this was tied in with the World Marshall Authority, who have an affiliation to the United Nations. So now the United Nations will no doubt know who I am in this. I would think all of the evidence suggests that I'm actually at the center of all of this in such a huge way, which suggests a big part of this is an experiment in relation to how I'm going to move forward. And I obviously there was an affiliation to the United Nations regarding that offer of money, and it doesn't matter how much money they offer me. It could be £5 million. No amount of money will be accepted. I will live in a tent for the rest of my life if necessary, because what it is about is changing the system. That is the reward for everybody in this. It's changing the system and safeguarding the future for everybody else and the children in the future, to bring about this transparent system. You know, I'm not compromised by any of this. I'm not compromised by drugs, alcohol, sex. You know, I'm not addicted to anything other than the love of, I'm not even addicted to that, but, you know, I love nature. I've got this massive respect for, you know, I'm just trying to, look, I make mistakes. Nobody is perfect. Nobody is perfect. I've done many things, many mistakes I make, and I'm straight away explaining those mistakes and identifying where I've gone wrong in things. And that's very important to do that. But what I'm trying to explain to you is I'm not tainted by the system where many other people may be. So this is why I'm the right person doing what I'm doing because I am doing it all for the right reasons. Hopefully that makes sense. Someone's put, no matter how hard or painful, remove consent, SHITTING, their harvest of your energy in whatever form creates an impenetrable barrier leading to peace and calm. Oh, and then you've changed. I see you there. I'm glad you then changed it. So you changed the SHITTING. It was meant to say shutting. I was reading that thinking that looks a little bit out that looks a little bit out of place. Sorry, that just made me chuckle. Yeah, no, thank you, Andrew. Thank you. I I don't watch BBC very much anymore. Everything feels fake. Yeah, even the BBC ties in with the bloodline of Christ. BBC in gematria is 223, as in A being 1, 2 being 2, B being 2, sorry, C being 3. So that's 223. Well, the bloodline of the Skull and Bones links to the number 322. The Skull and Bones appears to relate to the remains of Mary Magdalene and Jesus being hidden after they had died, and the Knights Templar hiding that, and how that links into the bloodline of Christ. And the Skull and Bones actually link in with the Russell organisation, and Russell and Company are linked into the International Drug Trafficking Network. And the Russell family become very relevant to the, you might have seen my video, you may not have, in relation to Kurt Russell and the colonization of Northern America starting in 1725. Kurt Russell claims to be related to Jason Russell in the battle that took place in New Hampshire in Northern America in 1725, and New Hampshire was named after Hampshire in the south of England, where this whole investigation began, right next to Dorset, and where the currency producer began producing money. All right, they started with portals in 1711. They were the ones that started the currency production, and then in 1724 they started producing the money for the Bank of England, and suddenly you have 1725, this colonization, this battle takes place in Northern America, and they named New Hampshire after Hampshire in the south of England, where the currency producer began. And it was, this all ties in with the vampirism side of things, so it's fairly conclusive with the evidence, or let's just say it's overwhelming evidence at the moment, showing that the system and the currency production system from back then itself was set up around the blood of the children. All right, going back into the blood, and how that ties in with the extension of life, and how they was trying to enslave humanity, to harvest humanity literally through the blood of the innocent. And this is why the healthcare systems have been set up around it. The NHS was set up in 1948, which is a key time, the year after the Doomsday Clock began. Same year the Association of Chief Police Officers began, which links to the Doomsday Cult, tying in with Julian Assange. So this, of course, gives the motive to make you ill, to get you into the healthcare system, so that they can take your blood through the healthcare system. And this, I believe, is where, at the moment, the evidence I've got is where the harmful radiation or technology emitted from cell towers, etc., ties in to this, where there's a motive to make you ill when they want to take the blood from you in the healthcare system. Now, this is why I believe cancer was deliberately introduced into humanity, because when somebody has cancer, it means lots and lots of blood gets taken, and of course people then die. That means organ harvesting from those individuals as well, worth a lot of money. And this all then makes sense why you have the world's international leaders via the research linking in with a halal company. Halal links to the Muslim faith and the draining of blood from animals, okay, within that faith. And that means you can, in theory, collect that blood, refine it to an extent where it will keep people alive for long enough to then transfuse that blood into humans, stealing the human blood, using the human blood stolen into the extension of life, and putting animal blood within them. You have the researcher Benjamin Netanyahu, Donald Trump, the leader of Iran, other leaders, I can't remember, all tying in with this halal company. Okay? Why would you have that? Why would you have somebody who is supposedly a Jew linking in with a halal Muslim company via the research, everyone? Well, it ties in with what I'm telling you about. And this is why I keep coming back. The alien deception, you see, it's their last card. So, but the evidence is seen straight through it. I've seen straight through it. I've got all of the evidence showing why it's a deception, and there's nowhere left for them to go, all right, other than, you know, maybe they continue trying to turn back time and end all of creation in doing that. Now, this could be where I end up forcing a tribulation event on Earth inadvertently, but we can't carry on. We can't carry on with what's been going on, so I don't have an option but to take that risk and keep moving forward with this. All right, now it could be they're trying to create portals and wormholes, and that will inadvertently cause a tribulation event, and affect the Earth's crust, leading to earthquakes and tsunamis. But this links in now. Look at the inversion within the scripture, because me coming forward with this evidence at the right time and all of this information with what I'm giving to you tells us that there is a deception within the tribulation itself. Right, because it says within the scripture that the return will happen after the tribulation, whereas it seems that the return is happening before. Well, that tells us that the tribulation was either never meant to happen, or the return triggers that tribulation event. But either way, it tells us that scripture is not real. If the return is happening now with this year, with this evidence, with all of this stuff that's coming out, it certainly looks like it is. It certainly looks like that's the case. There's too much evidence pointing towards that's happening. So it switches everything around. It inverts everything back. It changes everything. And now, of course, the priority for me is to not allow a tribulation event on Earth and not allow the end of all of creation. That has to be the priority, of course, in my mind, and ultimately protect that ever happening and protect the children moving forward, safeguarding them. Now, of course, that this then may lead to some potential future risk of an overpopulation, but this is where the transparency element comes into all of this. Okay, so the world it acknowledges with the truth, with the facts, with the truth, with no motive to lie behind it, that there may be some element of a risk of too many people in a certain area. But at that point, you incentivize, okay, through the truth, you incentivize people not to have children, or you incentivize them to live in another area, right? Through choice, transparency, choice, massively important. Now, you can't have true choice if you've got a deceptive criminal network in place that actually motivates the lies, all right? This is why it has to go. This is why the system protects everybody through the transparency to actually implement genuine choice, genuine democracy. There is no choice. You have been given the illusion of choice. There is no democracy. Make no mistakes, everybody. There isn't any. There hasn't ever been any. They've set it up from the beginning. It's a lie, an illusion of choice to suppress you, for you to believe you're actually being able to make a choice. You're not. This is why all supermarkets are connected together. You think you're actually buying from somebody, you know, in this location, and the money's going just to them. It's not. They're all connected, everyone. The money gets laundered back into the system, and in relation to this agenda that I'm talking to you about. This is a fact. You can see it through my evidence. So it's centralized. So it's incredibly important that we remove the motive for the deception. We remove the motive for the lies. That means the system has to go. It has to go. And when that goes, now I'm trying to do it in a way there is a transitional system. Now, ideally, you do that with their assistance. With their assistance. They're never going to be able to remain in power after this. Right? They're never going to be able to remain in a position of influence, because nobody's going to ever trust them again. They've had 4 years to do the right thing. If 4 years ago they came out and said, all right, Gary, look, we have had this criminal system, and okay, yeah, there has been a lot of these crimes going on in the past, but now we're going to work with you and we're going to do something about this, then maybe back then I would have said, all right, well, you're now doing the right thing. That's great. You've been in a position of some sort of, although I don't agree with what you've facilitated, you may be being coercively controlled, you may be being threatened, you may be being abused or whatever, or you felt too scared to come out about it. So you're doing the right thing now. So yes, I agree. You can potentially stay in that position with what you're doing. And because you're actually coming out with the truth, do you know what? I would condone you being somebody, a leader, because government needs to go. Government's mind control. Government is not the word we need to use. We need leadership. You have to have some sort of leadership, because some people will always want somebody to go to for guidance and for leadership. It's not about, shouldn't be about control, but it has been about control for them. All right. So there has been a motive for no democracy. So you need to remove that criminal network and the financial system that motivates a false democratic system. So you will actually find that there will be a true democratic decision, all right, being made in everything. So it's incredibly important. There was something else I was going to say, but I've forgotten. Can't see that happening, Julie. Please investigate Operation Rescript. They have been scripting our lives. Every government and religion agencies and involved, everyone who is conscious of the fraud are living in the Truman Show. Thanks very much. I've screenshotted that. Yeah, I think we can see through the evidence. I mean, it literally has all been controlled and manipulated around you, and you just haven't realised. I mean, I've pretty much just touched on it there, and that's being proven through everything. And I came in from, what was it going to tell you? I was going to tell you some of the evidence today coming in from the Pantheon. You hit a United Kingdom trustee company. The actual United Kingdom trustee company, right? In other words, in theory, that could be used to funnel everything through to that organisation, to a very small number of people who are at the top of all of this in relation to everything going on in the United Kingdom. And guess what? That organisation was incorporated with the same companies as Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited, where my investigations began, and they had been criminal companies. So that had been a criminal company for decades, all right? And this was coming in from the research, remember, going back 2,000 years in Rome, coming in from the Pantheon, and the evidence tying into the Oculus, the all-seeing eye linking in with the Vatican, everybody, and the deception that seems to have taken place right back 2,000 years ago. Well, it might not have been a deception back then. It might have just been they're not thinking rationally or coherently, because of the alcohol and the stuff that they were involved in, which started separating them from the divine creator in all of this. Make no mistake, everyone, there's a creator. It's blatantly obvious with what's going on through me. Blatantly obvious. So as long as everyone's on the right side of all of this, nobody has anything to fear. Even if they are actually going to end all of creation, they are the only ones that need to fear doing that. And there will be eternal consequences for them. There was something else I was going to say about what I found today, tied in with what I was just talking about. Just huge evidence. I haven't got it in front of me at the moment. It was just blowing my mind. Maybe it'll come to me in a minute. I can't remember. But it all linked in with vampirism. So there's links in from the research of the Pantheon going back. Now, I don't know there was vampirism back in 2,000 years ago. Of course I don't. But there's definitely a link via the research into vampirism in a massive, massive way. And the 13th century side of things, remember I told you about my dream, 1333, which linked into information being hidden of the blood tying in with the Flemings in all of this. Who were the Flemings, the ones that initiated my removal from Exbourne Manor when my investigation began, because I was refusing to file forged bank documents completely. And that is my moral conscience, you see, because I'm so close to it. I had 25 shareholders, all not supporting me in the right way, all doing the wrong thing against the creator. Right? That tells you who I am in this, all right, pretty much, because I've gone against everybody, even my own family. I've exposed my family. I put pictures of who I was led to be my mum in my picture, in my document, you know, and that's because it's the right thing for me to do. And I'm willing to put my life on the line to do what is right. And I'm willing to face losing everything to do what is right, because there's evidence of children suffering and there's evidence of the end of all of creation. So if I wasn't willing to put everything on the line, what is going to make me be willing to put everything on the line? Let's face it, if there's not going to potentially be a future and children are going to be skinned alive, then what motivation, what other motivation do you need to be willing to put everything on the line? I mean, it's a no-brainer in my books. There's a lot of stuff I keep forgetting to say, you know, and this is where, you know, occasionally I've been making mistakes in my document. I've said things wrong, got things mixed up. You know, I've upset a lot of people along this journey, which I haven't intended to. You You know, I'm making mistakes every day. I lose my wallet frequently. You know, I'm trying to explain to you how, you know, I'm not invincible, and I'm not, you know, and I absolutely need to get across to you that nobody should be putting all of their eggs in the basket of me. Right? You really should not be putting all of your hopes in me, right? Because it's setting you up to potentially fail if something happens to me. And I've never said that anybody should. The evidence is absolutely key. I mean, it's pretty obvious that this evidence is the key of David. As somebody was saying, and I've always said it's the key to this, and I didn't realize how it was going to tie in with literally scripture, but it is the key of David, because the key of David talks about how it would facilitate heaven on earth. Well, we now know what's been going wrong through this evidence. We now know what they've been doing. We know how to rectify it, and therefore we know how to ensure that it never happens again. Someone's put, with all respect, Gary, Jeremiah 49, Daniel 9, Psalms 83 is happening now. Yes, but what you're not thinking is that has been written, and they are trying to follow the script which has actually been infiltrated, has actually been put there by satanic realms, right, by Satanism. That's what you're not thinking about, which means it's not meant to happen. If the scripture has been infiltrated by Satanists that have put certain elements of scripture there, then that's not meant to happen, is it? So if everyone's thinking, like the likes of yourself, thinking, well, yeah, that's happening, and it's meant to be, and that's meant to happen, you are fitting the Satanism. Okay? What you need to look at is the overall picture and understanding the timings, and you've only got to look at the mass production of the Bible. Okay, when did that happen? 1500s, 1400s, by Gutenberg's, a German company that links in with Satanism. All right? Yes, absolutely. So anyone that is saying you need to read this bit of scripture, this is meant to happen, and you can't stop it, you need to think again. You're being deceived. Remember, what is Satanism? It's the ultimate deception upon deception upon deception. You need to see through all of that, through the discernment, through the evidence, through the theory, understanding the history, and trying to work out why there would be this deception, how it would fit their agenda. Yes, DWP are the problem, someone's saying. Corporation has been an agents and stupidity, the power of the pen, the living man's mark, and a trap has DWP, UC, and all connected services in checkmate. Interesting. Let me just read that again. Andrew's put, yes, DWP are in problems. The corporation has been owned via their own agents and stupidity. The power of the pen, the living man's mark, and a trap has DWP, UC, and all connected services in checkmate. The entire world system is in checkmate. Make no mistakes. All right. But if they follow my lead, if everyone, you know, I don't want anything from people following my lead. There's no motive for me to say this other than to say it is the way. It is the way. If everyone was to be following what I'm suggesting, including the people behind this system, everyone will be set free. Everyone will be set free. I will enable a transitional method with no chaos into a new system on earth. It's going to take a long time, but I can promise you it is absolutely achievable with the evidence and with the likes of myself in a position being able to make the decisions for those people on earth, or at least be a leader for now at least. And I don't want anything from it. I'm happy to live in a tent. Okay, this isn't me doing this for any money or any other reason other than realizing the threat to all of us and actually identifying what needs to happen to eliminate that threat and prevent it ever happening again. They poison us, someone's put, our children, and then force us to work in their corrupt system. I will never work another day in my life, and I won't be paying anything either. Well done, Big Smoke. Absolutely. Well done. You know, I've psychologically prepared myself to go into a valley in a tent and eat grass for the rest of my life. That is what I'm psychologically preparing myself to do if necessary, so I ensure that I maintain my moral conscience and I am not taken in by this beast system, all right, and what they may be planning, because I will not to the best of my ability, be part of anything in relation to the blood of the children and the innocence and the suffering of humanity and the end of all of creation, right? And that is how you're going to be saved. If you have that mindset and you're actually willing to put everything on the line, all right, then you're going to be saved in all of this, no matter what happens. If you're not willing to do that and you're going to actually continue to just go along as if nothing's going on, you know, even then with them giving you the Epstein files, telling you that children are suffering as a result of the system you're part of, then you're part of the problem. And I don't think you're going to be saved, possibly, if there is an end of creation event or an end of humanity event in this. Someone's put, that's why they're focused on benefits a lot. Own the bond, you win the base. Yeah, absolutely. Control people through the benefit system. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, part of the agenda. I've read what you said before. That's to somebody else. Sorry. You know, I've had to think very carefully about this. Who am I? Because I think that could be a key in this. One of the comments has just mentioned Christ, and someone else mentioned Antichrist. So if the evidence is suggesting that I might have the bloodline of Christ and Lucifer within me. So that means I had the possibility of, and it could be that I and another person who's key in this are the Antichrist and Christ embodied in one, and we were literally going to be deciding how this was resolved by which route we took, by how we move forward in this, you know. So if I'd have fallen for some of the deception, for example, and some of the information, I become part of this somehow, this criminal network, then, you know, for example, if I accepted the money, you know, let's just say I accepted that £800 a month, I could have then become the Antichrist because I'm falling into the ability of being corrupted by money, and therefore, that would have stopped me continuing with the exposure and continue with my strategy. So that meant I might not have averted, you see, what's meant to happen. And it would have actually, by me being taken out of the picture through bribery, I could have facilitated an Antichrist end in this, if you like, or an Armageddon and the tribulation event and everything they put in the scripture, which then could have been fitting in with the satanic agenda, you see. So I think at every single turn, I had a conversation today with someone about it. Every single turn, we're seeing through the deception, and we're jumping those hurdles or moving through those hurdles and actually passing the test at every single opportunity. I think that's what it's looking like at the moment. Maybe there's some hurdles that I'm not managing to pass, I don't know, but I certainly can't see that at the moment. So it may be that just through who we are and through what we're doing and the things that I've got planned on what I'm going to be doing, it may change everything without humanity actually needing to do anything themselves in terms of my strategy. But I can't rely on that. And that's why I keep saying to everybody, please follow my strategy. Look at the evidence. If you don't believe me, you don't trust me, you don't have to like me. You know, go and look at the evidence at least and verify the evidence to see that everything I'm telling you is true. And then you can make your own decision. It's very important that you make your own decision. You know, I'm not forcing anyone to do anything. All I'm saying is I advise you to do this. And, you know, you have to have choice. All right. You have to have choice. Nobody should be being forced to do anything. And this comes back to, you know, people that say, well, why doesn't the creator just intervene? Why do they allow humanity and me to do these things and happen? Because you're all being given the choice. And that's what any good father would do, wouldn't they? You know, if you have a child in your life, I've never had children, but if you have a child, you teach them as they're growing up, and then you send them on their way in their life, and you let them make their own decision. That's what a good father and mother does. And it's the same with the creator. You can't have, you know, because then you're not human. You're not human. If you're being forced into doing good things all of the time through choice, forced into doing it, and you not choosing it, then you're not choosing what's right. You're not fitting the moral conscience decision. And if you continuously to choose what to do, what's wrong, there has to be consequences to people if you knowingly do it in a rational state of mind. But obviously, there has been no rational state of mind generally, because the system, which means everybody can be saved. That's the amazing thing about this, you see. Everybody can be saved in this, because pretty much everybody has been deceived through the removal of moral conscience. See how wonderful this is. I must admit, Mark Christopher Kinson was active at exposure of Dun Bradstreet, also company. Oh, okay. So did he actually? Did he talk about the company's house fraud? I wasn't aware. If he did, then I apologise. I haven't actually looked at a lot of his stuff, so I might not have looked at any of his stuff actually. But if he did, then forgive me for my comment earlier. I'm sorry. As far as I'm aware, nobody else that has a platform, this is what I was aware of, has actually exposed the company's house fraud. You had John Harris was talking about the fraud. Sorry, not talking about the fraud, talking about company's house, but not actually talking about the fraud. You had Gordon Bowden was talking about the non-verification, but not actually about the fraud. And he would have known about the fraud with the level of information he had about company's house. Someone said, my work colleague had a heart attack. Doctor admitted it was caused through COVID jabs. Thanks, Starry Held. They put defibrillators in town centres and street corners after the rollout of them. Must be an accident. Gary, I WhatsApp you, but it blocked me. I need to do an episode together. Okay, so my WhatsApp, they infiltrated it. So initially, I had it. I was sending my document. It was brilliant for 3 years or whatever, 3 and a bit years, and then they stopped me being able to use it. So they blocked me because they realised I was giving the truth within a document through WhatsApp. When they eventually allowed me to reuse it again, to come back to it, it was constantly sending something from my phone. So I think they infiltrated it to infiltrate the evidence. So I haven't been able to use WhatsApp. So the only way you can contact, this is to Steph or anyone else really. Steph, if you go on to my, type in Gary for Freedom on Facebook, you'll see an image of me jumping in the air in a wetsuit with a mountain in the background. Okay, this was when I was in Slovenia. Go into the Messenger and send me a message on Messenger, right? And you can actually speak to me and send me direct messages on there. I'm not having chance to respond to my emails at the moment. But if you think it's urgent, and you think it's something you need to speak to me about, then I don't know I presume you've got a bit of a platform if you're saying do an episode together. So Steph, yes, Stefan, not Steph, Stefan or Stephen. Oh my goodness, I'll start again. Stephen James, I do apologise. Stephen, start again. See, I'm only human. See, those are people that have actually tried saying I'm artificial intelligence. That's how desperate they are. All right, to actually try and discredit me, saying, well, I'm clearly not. Stephen, yes, let's communicate. Messenger, Facebook, Gary for Freedom. Jesus walked on water, Mr. Waterman, someone said. Yeah, I don't believe Jesus was even his real name, but we'll use that for now. Waterman walked on water. Yes. Yeah, interesting. They did, in 2006, David Blaine did a prank of walking on water. That was the year that I moved from Kent to Dorset, and that's the same year the Da Vinci Code movie came out. When you actually search his main information on Wikipedia and search it, it doesn't even talk about that trick that he did. They've removed that. I suspect that could be deliberate because they were worried it would make the connection that he was doing that because they know something about me and timed it with the year that I moved to Christchurch, to Dorset. There's loads of other things happened around 2006. It was a massive, massive year. They even created a company called What Next, or What Next, or What Do We Do Next, which links into a key bit of my evidence, as if they were literally putting it in a company name. Well, what do we do now? Gary's moved to Dorset, or a property that I wasn't actually in Exbourne Manor then, and of course the year afterwards, 2007, is when they introduced me to Exbourne Manor, and they staged the relationship to my wife. Now, I had a conversation with someone yesterday. How does it make you feel that your wife has deceived you for 17 years of your life? And I said, look, you know what? With how big this is, I don't hold any. I could very easily hold vengeance or anger as an emotion against these people, but I've had to really separate from that, and this is probably why I am who I am, because I'm able to step back from it and look at the bigger picture and actually realize, okay, well, if they've done this, then there's obviously something very important with me. If they're setting up a 17, and then I talked about my mum and my dad. You know, I had the conversation. Yeah, well, okay, my wife's done that. What about my mum and my dad? That from the beginning, they've been told, you've got to bring Gary up, knowing this, this, and this, and you have to stop him being involved in the fraud, and them having all of this knowledge, okay, and for their entire life practically not being able to say a word about it. What an effort. You imagine that? That's how big this is, everybody. It's massive. So they've got all of these people staged around my life. I even think the prison service, the prison that I was in, it wasn't even a normal prison process that they had. They had a fake set up prison service for my 12 days in custody, which I think they had a load of actors. I think there was a load of actors put in position. This is the level they've gone to, everybody. It's massive. Look into Pfizer adverse reactions document, hundreds of side effects. Download PDF if you can. I think I've seen it, actually. Thank you. Most of the criminals are claiming benefits and driving disability cars. Vanessa's put. Yeah, oh, they'll be exploiting you all in every way, shape or form, all through the insurances. They have a constant pot of money coming in because they basically adjust all of the rates. You know, they'll be adjusting all of the rates, all of the premiums as part of the fraud. It's all a lie, everybody. Even the 2008 crash, all right, massive crash around the world, that is deliberate, 100%. So what they would have enabled them to do is falsify that crash, and then what they would have done is stolen many properties through that crash, because it meant many people couldn't afford their properties, and that fits the Albert Pike agenda to take over the world and then bring about the light of Lucifer, because a big part of taking over the world is obviously land, but they own absolutely nothing. And this could explain why, who was it, one of the World Economic Forum members came out and said, you will own nothing and be happy. They own nothing. They literally own nothing because of this fraud. So you've been led to believe that not English Heritage, what's the other one? National Trust is one of the biggest landowners. They own nothing legally because of the forgery behind it, you see. It says it's an inversion, a satanic inversion. The entire system has been. My daughter had 2 jabs. She had pains in her arm and chest. She was pain horrendous. She said the pain was worse than pregnancy. Yep, so if I presume what you're saying is genuine, Starry Held, I'm presuming you're genuine in this. All right, some of the information you've given me is pretty massive, so I presume you are. It's very possible they may have spiked several of the, or many of the vaccines as part of the agenda to make it look like it was the vaccines. But I actually think it's going to be tying in more if everybody really did die. I mean, let's just presume everybody did die when we're being told they did. Massively going to be linked into the evidence of the cell towers in this. And this comes back to the removal of the lead paint. It comes back to what I've been saying to you about putting people into the healthcare system to steal their blood. The removal of the lead paint, the banning of the lead paint in France in 1909, which is when the Secret Intelligence Service was set up, and loads of other key things happened in 1909. They then followed that in America with 1978, I believe it was, the year after I was born. I think it was 1978. Definitely it was in England or the United Kingdom in 1992. Again, that big year, everybody. 1992, they banned lead paint in the United Kingdom. Same year that the Companies House Register started to become electronic, and all of this information came out about the Vatican and the whole Galileo thing that I told you about earlier. But they allowed an exclusion. They allowed grade 1 and grade 2 listed buildings to be able to still use lead paint. All right, lead paint would be able to protect from any potential harmful technology in the airwaves. Okay, so this enabled them, according to all of my evidence, to be able to protect themselves in their lodges, on their estates, where the hunting of children seems to be taking place, and the fox hunting being used as a cover for the hunting of those children. I still have to say, with the evidence I've got, that appears to be the case, and how that ties in with the blood going back centuries. So, of course, this gives them the ability to protect themselves through the lead paint. And, of course, it's possible, we have to consider that they were testing or trialing new technology on how they could make people ill to get them into the hospitals to take their blood, and they ended up killing people through that technology. They then had to make you believe that it was either linked into a virus and then tie that into the vaccines later, because that enabled the cell towers to remain and the wireless technology to remain in place whilst they tweaked the technology on how they use it to either make you ill still, to get you into the hospitals, and also how they use that technology to intrusively survey you and potentially use frequency sound waves to mind program you at the same time. You see, there's a lot of motive as to why people would be pointing you and making in the direction of the vaccines being the problem, so that it maintains the agenda moving forward. Court case going on in the Netherlands to do with COVID and Bill Gates. That'll be a deception. That'll be a deception. That'll be to fit the agenda, like I've just been saying. Do you think that the Queen's sister... Oh, we've got a question. That's good. I like questions. Do you think that the Queen's sister, who used to go slumming in the East End in the Craze nightclub, is to do with it all? 100%. I didn't know that, though. I didn't know that they used to... Oh, the... I'll screenshot that. In fact, they're all of the royals are going to be involved in this. They're all the way through the evidence, all the way through it, massively linked into it. What was it I searched yesterday and it came up with royal connections? Oh, I've forgotten where it's coming in from now. Oh, it was to do with vampirism. It was coming in. It was linked into vampirism again, and it went to a lady of Serbia who is linked to the royals. Related, I think she's a cousin or something. And then it went to a UAE company, massive connections. Well, that was linking in with vampirism again, which is the blood of the innocent. Gary, it's Stephen Johnson. WhatsApp me. I think they blocked us. I can't use WhatsApp, Stephen. I can't use WhatsApp. All right, because they're using WhatsApp, it looks like, to infiltrate the evidence. I can only use Messenger, I'm afraid. So I'm a bit behind with the comments. You might have already responded about what I said earlier. Oh yeah, I'm way behind with the comments, aren't I? Gary, sorry, they are so desperate to close down local businesses so that everyone has to buy everything online, phase out cash quicker. Yeah, absolutely, Carla. They're going to really struggle to do it now with the evidence. If they carry on and do it, then they're going to hell. There's no other way, no other place for them. They really are going to end up in a bad place in this whole situation. Good mindset, Gary, but charity shops are a concern. Oh no, I understand. Charity shops are massively linked into the criminal network, but unfortunately, I would still rather buy second hand than new. Wherever you buy your clothes, unfortunately, you're part of it. And you put watch dumpster diving on YouTube, you'll see the waste binned, and many are closing down for financial reasons. It's shocking to see the waste. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. No one carries cash anymore. Once that's gone, it's game over. Yeah, if they use full digital currency control, then humanity is in a very difficult position. Very, very difficult position. And this is why, if you're concerned about this, you should all be following the strategy. You should all be doing something now rather than waiting. I try and use cash as much as possible. Paying with a phone is weird too. Yeah, absolutely. Everybody should be paying with cash. I mean, everybody should really, my advice now is withdraw as much of cash as you can. But, as in try and have hardly any money in your accounts, because there might well be a time, everybody, when they are literally going to shut all of the accounts. Remember, you've got Satanism linked into this. Well, what better way to bring in a tribulation event and a chaotic event? They literally shut all of the accounts down, steal your money. Then what are you going to do? At least if you've drawn your cash out, you can at least trade with people on the street with some sort of cash initially in a transitional period, whilst we sort out the mess afterwards. But yeah, that is very likely something that they may do, everybody. So Bill Gates injecting farm animals with mRNA. Yeah, so we're being led to believe. Oh, what you've got to remember is why do they allow hundreds of thousands of views? Because they can control them, because they're controlling me. How are they allowing, well, why are they allowing hundreds of thousands of views in relation to the things some of you are talking about? All right, so it's going to be part of the agenda. Now, you've got to be asking yourselves, why are they allowing you to see hundreds of thousands of views if it's exposing their system? Okay? In other words, it's going to be a distraction. It's going to be some sort of deception to get you to think something when actually the truth is something else. Because there's no other reason they would do that. The only way you're going to know that this is actually the only right thing to do, for them to do now, is to come out on all social media publicly and for over a period of several days so everyone gets to see it. The fact they've had a criminal financial system in place that deliberately facilitates the laundering of money in relation to crimes against humanity, terrorism, drug trafficking, crimes against children, and crimes of international conflict. That's the only way of a true reset to truth. Once that reset to truth happens at that point, we know we're on to a change on Earth. But it's getting that to happen. One thing I do want to mention is a video was sent to me. It had who was it? What's his name? Again, somebody else who's refusing to use the evidence of the criminal vaccine companies, but supposedly is saying the vaccines are a crime and they're harming people. Is the Welsh? I forgot his name. I've spoken to him. You'll know who I'm talking about. The Welsh guy, anyway. He, sorry if you're watching this, I'm sorry I've forgotten your name. He has recently done a video where he's gone into I think it's a court, saying that he's threatening to arrest the court people. The police have turned up and said, you can't arrest under Section 24A of PACE because of this, this, and this. That's a lie. I believe that was a collaborative effort to publicise that video so that it makes you think you can't follow my strategy. All right, that's what I think that was, deliberately to do that, to get you to, and a lot of the things I'm seeing is to get you scared, to make you think you can't do what's right in what I'm telling you. All right, absolutely, under Section 24A of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, anybody can arrest anybody for an indictable offence. You don't even have to have the evidence to prove it at that point. You just have to believe that someone is guilty or committing, sorry, not guilty, commit, it's the wrong word, scrap that guilty, committing a indictable offence, which means any of the more serious offences. Now, it doesn't have to be murder. It just means it excludes things like going through a red light, traffic light, or, you know, I'm trying to think of another minor offence, like pushing somebody, just a push without any actual bodily harm or grievous bodily harm, although I think that's in either way offence. But yeah, you know, so anybody can arrest anyone as long as there is certain criteria that is met, because you have to have an arrest criteria. Now, they were saying, well, there's no risk of threat and harm. Of course there is. Okay, we've got evidence now tying this in to the crimes against children, the laundering of money in relation to the abuse, torture, and murder of children, and they're not actually addressing it. They're ignoring it for 4 years. Many of you hopefully have seen the phone call that I made, okay, to the police. They took that video down initially after I did it, and then they allowed me to then have my YouTube back after complaints were made, because they realised the timing of them taking that down was going to expose them massively. And I still have not had, well, I've had a missed phone call, one missed phone call, which may be the police, but I've had no voice messages, and I'd actually requested email contact anyway, and I've had no contact. So they are completely ignoring it. This was on the 12th of May. Okay, I made that phone call. 12th of May, almost 2 months ago. Nothing, all right, other than a missed phone call that may or may not have been the police. Section 24A of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act is 24A of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act 1984. If there is a risk, okay, if you need to secure and preserve evidence, first of all, that fits the evidence, all right? That fits the criteria, because they are doing nothing. You need to secure and preserve the evidence, so you are making an arrest to secure and preserve the person involved in this fraud to secure and preserve the evidence that they held. So they need to be questioned in relation to it. Straight away, you've got the right to arrest. A risk of any threat and harm coming to some individuals. Well, yes, of course, the threat to humanity and the threat to the children. All right, because nobody's doing anything about it. There's the ability through the fraud to launder the money. Everything tells us they're still allowing it to happen. So, of course, those two criteria allow you to make that arrest. This video was to deliberately try and make you think that you can't arrest. It's a lie. And this was in collaboration, I believe, with this person who is claiming to be doing the right thing to draw you in. This is what they do. This is a tactic. So he's claiming the vaccines are a biological weapon and that he's going to arrest people. But then this police officer comes in and says, no, you can't arrest them for this, this, and this. And he has publicized that video. See what I mean? It's a collaborative effort to get you to think that my strategy will not work. It will work. I'm giving you the strategy, the evidence, the empowerment, and that's because I am who it appears I am. I have the evidence, I have the key to this to turn this completely around, and they know it. And I actually found evidence today of tying back in when I was coming in from, this was coming in from the Pantheon. Again, coming in from the Pantheon, made a link. It's amazing how this is just leading into me telling you this. So back in 2024, it might have been last year, it might have been 2025, I started coming out with a strategy of public arrest, citizens arrest, absolutely legal, peaceful, lawful, the way forward in this 100%. They then brought out the Citizens Arrest Network. So these people were doing these videos going all over the place where they were trying to arrest people within organizations. Within that video, they ended up getting arrested by the police. All right. Check out the name, go straight into main key areas of the fraud of the person that was doing the citizens arrest. All right. So that was the tactic. That was a tactical effort to publicize the risk of you being arrested if you were to make citizens arrest. You see, by people involved in the system. This is all part of it. This is why you've been being led to believe that people are being arrested for Facebook posts. No, they're not. They're setting it up so that people are being arrested for Facebook posts who are involved in the criminal network to make you think you can't face the truth. As long as you have evidence of the truth, you can post it. As long as you're not being threatening, abusive, or insulting, harassing anybody continuously after you've been told to stop to actually contact them. And you have to be, you have to use your common sense with this, right? If you're messaging someone and they say, stop messaging me, or you don't hear from them after you sent them 3 messages or whatever, then you probably need to just give up on it in terms of if it's a person and an individual on a private basis. Of course, if it's somebody who is an MP and you're trying to send evidence, that's interesting. One of the other things, again, today that I found out, somebody supposedly has been sentenced for harassing Donna Jones that I mentioned earlier, Police and Crime Commissioner of Dorset. Guess what? Research that person that's supposedly been sentenced for harassing her. She's linked into the fraud. See, this is what you need to see through. The deception, the information they're planting in front of you is not the truth. You need to think of the theory, everything else I'm talking about, and how they're trying to make you think that you can't do anything about this, all right? Because they're panicking everybody, because they know I hold the key to turn the entire world around. Now, they are trying to control the flow of the information and the evidence, and no doubt they were thinking, what are we going to do about this? How are we going to deal with Gary? Alien deception, let's do the alien deception thing. Let's really roll that, because maybe Gary will fall for that, and he will then think, okay, the aliens are gone now, and that explains the blood of the children. No, I've seen through it. I've seen through it. There is no further card to play. There isn't a card left to play for them. It's over. All right, we just need to get the evidence out. We need people to follow the strategy. There's a few things I'm going to be doing. Unfortunately, these people have really chosen wrong in their life, and they know it. They know it. Now, I feel incredibly sorry for them. You imagine back then, imagine centuries ago, they're not thinking rationally. They're thinking there's no creator. They end up getting involved in sexual immorality through that irrationality, first of all. Then it leads into children. Then potentially somehow the blood element became involved. Then there was this vampirism link, and they worked out that by somehow transfusing or taking that blood into their body, it was just going to rejuvenate them. And then they found it might have extended their life. And then it's gone into, because you've got the whole fear of death at the heart of this, through the deception within the Christianity and things along the way, where experiments that have been done. This is why you have the theory of evolution, which ties into this, into my research. You can see that's tied into this. So they've actually tried to convince people within the system that there is no creator, because if they convince people there is no creator, that fits their agenda. It fits the agenda. And then they have this world leading into the end of all of creation, but you have this world of the blood of the innocent, the blood of the children, tying with the Satanism connection in all of this. Now, absolutely 100%, we are living under a criminal system. That's a fact that deliberately facilitates the laundering of the money in relation to the crimes against humanity, children, and conflicts, drug trafficking, terrorism. All right, everything else could be a deception for me, potentially, to test me to see if I see through it all. But yet, they've got this system to allow the laundering and the blood of the children and the conflict. So it's very unlikely that it's all going to be a lie. It's very likely that all of those things haven't been happening. And they're just digging themselves a deeper hole continuously by the alien deception. It obviously now makes me believe, well, okay, this now supports that the blood was real right back from it, and therefore all of these other things are possibly real now, because they're pushing the alien deception agenda, you see, which then fits and makes sense. So they've actually dropped themselves in it even more. Hopefully you can understand what I'm saying. They've actually exposed themselves and created even more of a difficult situation for themselves now, because they're trying to fit the alien agenda, you see, as well. Even if some of the more recent events were a deception to make me wake up to who I am, because I have had to consider that some of the blood-related incidents to the children, or in the recent years, have been staged to get me to wake up who I am and identify all of this, but them not potentially thinking I would find the full evidence going back into everything, and now they're panicking and having to come up with an alternative answer to this, tying in with the alien deception. Took the POCAN transmitters even after death, and cells still replicate, creating a circuit. That's why they prefer cremation, as it is only burns evidence but severs the connection. Someone's put, I will never understand what drives humans to cold-heartedly inflict misery and suffering on others. It's barbaric. Yeah, absolutely. But they've reflected this in the meat industry. Part of this is them thinking, well, humanity's happy with what we're doing with the animals, and they're not willing to actually kill animals themselves, and they're expecting everybody else to kill them. So this is all part of the crimes against the children, believe it or not. It all ties in, and of course it is given the ability to put the remains of the children within that food chain as part of it as well. So you don't actually know whether you're eating meat or not a lot of the time, as in animals, what you're eating what you're being led to believe you're eating. Andrew, did you see that the technology is still active after they pass away? Someone said. The beast systems have been slaughtering the sheep race since the beginning. Yep, certainly seems that way. BBC is corporation. Corporations operate a profit. They fake it till they make it. They are performing acts. It up, people. Performing acts up the people, someone said. They can only be removed with the frequency of love. The only thing that keeps them active is our fear-based frequency. It's always been a war on frequencies, someone said. Someone said BBC backwards is CBB in numbers 322. Yeah, absolutely. Links in with children as well. Yeah, I think it was you that told me that, Starry Held, that mentioned that initially. My Bluetooth isn't finding anything. Yep, neither does mine. A lot of people are saying Bluetooth's in the vaccines. I've had 3 vaccines. There's not Bluetooth in me. We need leaders. Leadership is a corporate maritime language. Someone's put, got fat jabs in. even using Wi-Fi as a connection point. Look into videos on how settings affect your phone data and learn how to shut elements down. Someone's put, we are getting there and you are working tirelessly to stand up for what is correct. Thanks, Happy New Phone. I'm trying. Am I trying my best? Well, there's days I'm having walks to relax. So whether you could say, I think I'm trying my best, to try and keep myself strong psychologically and physically as well. And there's a bit of praying going on as well, which is helping me. You will be protected if there was an army of us camping together, bruv. Thank you very much, Espresso. Appreciate it. Thank you. In 1939, an act made a criminal offence to provide or administer cures for cancer. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Just to read that to you, what someone's put, everyone, if you haven't seen it, the comment in 1939, I've researched it, it's true. In 1939, an act made it criminal offence to provide or administer cures for cancer. Your health is your wealth, and they harvest your energy. Yeah, that's true. That's actually in my document. I've looked at that. They did create an act, right, which helps support that they actually created cancer in the first place. Someone's put, is this why there's millions of skulls in the catacombs of France? Sounds like they've had a reset before when people were waking up. Could be, actually. Yeah, I mean, I've heard about that place, actually. That would be worth me looking at. France is massively relevant in all of this. It's where the bloodline seems to have been initially hidden. The Louvre Museum is critical in this, which is obviously in France with the inverted pyramids and this link into Mary Magdalene. So, yeah, I might screenshot that actually to find out about the skulls. It could be that they I've been fed a lot of reset information. It could be that the resets aren't real and that they're wanting people to believe they are so that people come forward to do the right thing. Could be. I'm not saying it is the case, but someone's put oh no, that's the same question, sorry. I'm with you, Gary. Even when you make mistakes, I am witness to you doing your best to correct them. Thank you very much, Happy New Phone. Really appreciate it. It means a lot. Gary, have you heard of the Jesus ship? Looks like it was the start of trafficking. No, I haven't. Thank you very much. Screenshot that. Jesus ship. I'm my own doctor. Someone's Big Smokes put, haven't been ill for years. Funny enough. Yeah, I very rarely get ill. I mean, I actually feel better. I actually think that they were deliberately making me ill when I was with my wife. Now, I'm not suggesting, well, I am suggesting possibly that my wife was partly to do with that. I've actually felt certainly psychologically better since I've left my wife. More clarity, more rationality. I've been like incredibly empowered psychologically since I've left my wife, if that makes sense. I feel completely empowered psychologically. I don't know how to explain it really. I get like a few like health issues, like my hip hurts every now and then, but I'm getting older. But I do think many illnesses other than physical, as in when you physically hurt yourself, I think a lot of them are deliberate, through the criminal system that we've got. Why would anyone go to a Google doctor? Well, even a normal doctor, unfortunately, they're completely compromised by this. But they also removed the true name of the creator. The creator's name is I Am. Hebrew names Yahuwah. Came in his father's name. Where is the father's name in Jesus? Let me just read that again. I Am. Yeah, I Am. I've researched I Am, and it actually links back into myself, and Contact A becomes very relevant in the evidence. There's multiple I Am companies they've set up, linking in with a Shion company. Shion means an heir to an heir, I suppose, in a line of lineage, and that ties in with critical evidence in this, including linking to David Icke, which links to all three of my families. But I Am, just reading that, the creator's name is I Am, they've put. Hebrew names are Yahuwah and Yahusha. I'm saying this wrong, forgive me. and Yahusha came came in came in his Father's name. Where is the Father's name in Jesus? Okay. Stephen Johnson has been trying to contact you, but WhatsApp is blocked. Hopefully, I've answered that. My WhatsApp is not in use. Messenger, please, and anyone can message me on Messenger. Please feel free to contact me on Messenger. My Facebook is Gary for Freedom. Go through Messenger, click on that, and I should be able to speak to you. I'm in contact with a few people on there, not many. It's surprising. I've also got Telegram, which is Gary for Freedom. Haven't been responding much on there, I've got to be honest with you, because I just don't have time at the moment. And you can contact me on my email, which is GaryTheTruthSetsUsFree@gmail.com. That's GaryTheTruthSetsUsFree@gmail.com. And my Facebook, as I've said, is Gary for Freedom. And I really, to help me, everybody really needs to sign up, as I said earlier, to my TikTok account, which is Gary for Freedom 2 at the end. So Gary with one R, the word 4, not the number 4. Freedom and the number 2 at the end. Please go and sign up to that so that I can start trying to do lives. I think they're probably just going to suppress it again because they're satanic and evil, and I hope you're listening to this. If you continue to do that, there's only one place you're going to be going, especially if I am who it looks like I am, and I will be absolutely praying for that to happen. All right, if you're not going to come forward in truth, transparency, and full commitment to change and repentance, because I have to then create that as a messaging system for those behind the system. This is why I said the other night on my live, and I did a prayer, not a very good prayer, but I prayed that these people that kept kicking me off my live 4 or 5 times the other night, that they would be used as a message to those behind the system, whatever the creator felt necessary to do through those people, to show that they will be facing consequences in this. If they continue to suppress my evidence and kick me off my lives. And that's almost, to get kicked off lives continuously, and this was not me using keywords either, okay? This was not me using at those specific points when I was being kicked off those words. This is when the evidence was getting too hot for them, okay? Research Tartaria. Many resets have transpired, you'd be amazed, with some information available, but you have to dig very deep. Think outside the black cube, you'll find difficult truths. Thanks very much, Andrew. Screenshot that. I have started to look into Tartaria, but they supply a lot of the evidence in relation to it as well. So this is, got to consider, why would they be doing that? The evidence I found on the previous extinctions is massive. I'm pretty certain that all mass extinctions never even happened. All right, that's how massive the evidence is. And actually, that reminds me, because when I was speaking earlier about Oculus coming in from the 2,000 years ago and how that links in with the Pantheon, right there you have Jurassic Coast companies coming in from a particular point in the evidence. I can't remember exactly, but it's very close to the Pantheon link. You have Jurassic Coast, all right, and guess what? Those companies are dissolving. Right, Jurassic Coast is in Dorset, which relates to where my investigation began, and there is a Jurassica company that had already found, coming in from a key bit of research, that links to extinction companies, all right, and they're all shutting down. All right. The NOAA organization that monitors the solar flares and monitors the tilting of the poles, the pole shifts that you've all heard of, I'm sure. They are defunding that organization that monitors those events, everybody, as the exposure continues. All right. I don't believe there's ever been an extinction level event. I don't believe the dinosaurs ever existed. I don't believe there will be an extinction level event. I suspect we are far more important than they are being led to us to believe, possibly even the center of everything where we are, which fits into the agenda and the evidence that I was talking about earlier. I just think we are in a moment of massive revelations of truth beyond anything that we ever even really comprehended in this. And the evidence is there to support it, everyone. It's not a case of, and the evidence is there to support it in one document, everybody. One document. That's it. It's all it's taken to change the world forever. One document that's verifiable. Not joking, but only way this happens is if hundreds camp with you to protect you, mate. No, I'm still here. Nothing's happened to me. I don't think anything is going to happen to me. I will do everything I can to make sure I stay alive. I can't meet with anybody at the moment, but thank you very much for the offer. Vanessa said, I stopped paying TV license and council tax. I'm not paying for water anymore either. Well done, Vanessa. Amazing. Amazing. Well done. Haven't paid my water, council tax, electric, gas for 3 years. Only thing I pay is for Wi-Fi. Well done, Carla. Well done. There's I've heard of many people that haven't paid anything, bills wise, etc. for, I think one was about 6 years. Might be even longer than that. Don't they contact you after you put there, Vanessa? Is that to me? I'm not too sure if that. Oh no, that's to somebody else, isn't it? Someone's put, I prefer the cold to the heat. Yeah, that was espresso. Yeah, do you know what? I had a conversation again yesterday or the day before. I lived in a tent through the winter in the Highlands, okay, with snow around me. Didn't have any heating appliances, okay. And it's not like I'm not old, but I'm not young. I'm 40. Is it 48 this year? I always get mixed up. Well, 49. And do you know what? It was more than manageable. It was more than manageable, everybody. And do you know what? It was actually quite nice because I was in a little tent, but I had it made me go out more. So I was out in the snow a little bit more than I would have been if I was in a house, which just basically got me away from the technology. It made me feel better. Obviously I got cold at points, but I just put more layers on. I actually thought I was going to have to buy another sleeping bag and have 3 sleeping bags, but I only needed 2. And then if I got a little bit chilly, I'd just put extra pairs of clothes on. Someone's put the bloodline is one person and it's a choice. The bloodline is one person, it's a choice. And it's already been made. The right hand of righteousness of the one true creator. Someone's put. Thanks, Like for Truth. That's interesting. Thank you very much. It's a twin system. Satan has the false Messiah, Jesus, God, the true creator I am. The Hebrew names are Yahuwah and Yeshua. I always say that wrong. They won't be getting a penny from me. Someone's put, said it for years. Until I'm gone, just recycle the paper. Thanks, Big Smoke. Vanessa put, get the document out, everyone. Then Gary, then people can do the strategy. The strategy is still in the document on my Telegram. The strategy is still there. So, you can still do the strategy. It's on Telegram, Gary for Freedom. Okay, Gary for Freedom. All of this other evidence, it doesn't really, it adds a lot of the history, it adds a lot of the motive, it adds a lot of the theory behind this. But the evidence is already enough in the previous document. There's enough evidence in there. The strategy is written within that document. So it's on my Telegram, Gary for Freedom. Go back a little while. You'll see a document. You'll see a document attached, and it's got a number at the beginning of that document, and the number is followed by the main evidential research document wording, or main evidential research document. Cool to have kids now, if you are aware. Yeah, this is one of the reasons I didn't know about this, but one of the reasons I didn't try and have children is because I could see that the world was in a lot of trouble anyway before I even knew about the fraud, and I just didn't want to create even more of an issue by me bringing more children into the world and them having to go through that. Because at that time I was believing about potential overpopulation. We're not going to know the truth of that, all right? We're not going to know the truth about, and this is one of the first things I'm going to do if I have any say in how we move forward in this and that I have an involvement. One of the first things will be, and it's on my list, is how many people are there really on Earth, all right? And is that really going to be a risk to everybody? Because that obviously then needs to become, through the truth, through the transparency, through the incentivized choice, a discussion that needs to take place with humanity. Someone's put truthful out. He walks among us. UK hiding secrets like no other. Someone's put. Thanks very much. Like truth. Imagine being red pilled in the 90s and having to wait this long. Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah, hopefully I've answered that, Lisa. The older document is on my Lisa said please distribute the document. Yeah, it's on my Telegram, Gary for Freedom. The older one is. Amazing Polly was exposing the companies in America linked to the same stuff, Gary. Thanks, Carl. Yeah, somebody else has mentioned her. I keep forgetting to look at her, to be honest with you. I've got about 100 screenshots from these, which I've got. That's on my list of things to do, but I just haven't got round to doing it because obviously what I'm doing is finding things that become critical in to explain what's going on, what they're doing, but also supports who I may be in this, because that could be the key to turn this around. Because if I can make them see the consequences in their continued actions through the deception of the system, then it may get them thinking. You see, if I can work on their hearts and minds, then obviously that's the quickest way to resolve this, isn't it? Is to actually get through to the hearts and minds of those behind the system. And within 5 days of me sending my evidence to Keir Starmer's office, starting to link in with the culling of the dolphin. Now, there's massive evidence tying into the dolphins that I haven't even publicised, all right, where I have to consider with this evidence that they have been, as a mockery to Christ. I mean, this is awful what I'm going to tell you, so close your ears. Causing the children to suffer for 13 minutes before they are actually unalived, including things like severing spinal cords and things like that. This is what I suspect has been going on, because of the link that I've got into the dolphins has now exposed that. And we're paying for it, or we have been paying for it, everybody, and financing that happening and how the laundering happened. And I got to say, I'm sorry, I don't think that's a deception at the moment. I think that's actually been going on. Now, how recently that's been going on, I don't know. But I do think that's been going on historically to the children. So, unbelievable. And this is why, I think possibly it's because the dolphins are the closest things to a child, which is the closest thing to Christ. So if you were to want to mock and really test Christ, I suppose, and the Creator, then you would sacrifice, if you were evil, pure evil, the closest thing to Christ itself, themselves. The sonic weapon controlling the masses, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, a few months after the World War II disarming control. I'm going to head off, guys. Sorry, I know I haven't answered probably half the questions on here. I'm getting quite hungry. I could come back on, actually, after I've eaten.